With her drop-dead gorgeous looks, it seemed inevitable that Ava Gardner would become one of the biggest stars of Hollywood's golden age. Her life was filled with glitz and glamour, and she was a common face at extravagant Hollywood parties. Her marriages to famous personalities like Mickey Rooney and Frank Sinatra were filled with ups and downs, and unfortunately, her dazzling beauty often overshadowed her impressive acting skills, which made Gardner feel insecure about her talent. In this video, we will share similar rare facts about Ava Gardner while you enjoy some of her rare photos. Despite her glamorous lifestyle, Ava Gardner's early life was quite ordinary. She was a true country girl, born and brought up in the small town of Grabtown, North Carolina, and grew up on a farm, one among 7 children, and life was far from easy. Her family was poor, and they lost their home and farm to the bank when the children were still young. This unfortunate event forced them to leave their hometown of Grabtown and relocate to Virginia. With the Great Depression casting a dark shadow over their lives, their struggles were far from over. After their farm was taken, Gardner's father started working on other people's farms while her mother took up jobs managing dormitories and boarding houses. Life was tough for the family, and things were about to get even tougher. When Gardner was just 15, her father got very sick with bad bronchitis, and sadly, he didn't make it. The family was heartbroken, and this sad event led them to move back to North Carolina. Gardner finished high school there. After high school, she started learning how to be a secretary, but fate had other plans for her, plans that didn't involve just working on a typewriter. You might think most stars get noticed in a soda shop, but Gardner's journey to stardom is a fairy tale. At the age of 18, she went to New York City to visit her sister. Her brother-in-law was a professional photographer, and he took a picture of her. He displayed it in his studio, and it didn't take long for many of his clients, especially the men, to notice it. One man in particular showed a lot of interest in it. The man who showed interest in the photo was Bernard Duhan, who said he was a talent scout for MGM. But the receptionist at the photo studio was clever. She realized Duhan was not a talent scout, but a law clerk who liked to pretend he was, just to meet pretty young women. Funny enough, even though he wasn't a real talent scout, he still played a part in Gardner's rise to fame. When the receptionist told Duhan to leave, he suggested somebody should send her info to MGM. Gardner's brother-in-law took his advice. Before long, Gardner was on a plane back to New York for a screen test. The agent knew Gardner had a thick Southern accent, so he cleverly arranged for her not to speak during the test. When the head of the studio, Louis B. Mayer, saw the test, he reportedly said, "She can't sing, she can't act, she can't talk, she's terrific." But enthusiasm alone wouldn't be enough. Gardner had a big mountain to climb. In 1941, MGM Studios offered Gardner a contract. They were honest though, they were only interested in her for her looks. But a job's a job, and even small roles were a big help for someone in Gardner's situation. But she wanted more. She worked hard with a dialogue coach and a singing coach, determined to be more than just a pretty face. Still, the studio wasn't so keen to give her bigger roles. Even though Gardner hadn't been in a movie yet, she didn't let that stop her from becoming a star. Despite her strong Southern accent, she was still one of the most beautiful women at MGM. As part of her contract, she took loads of publicity photos. Once again, her looks helped her move up in the world, but that wasn't all she had going for her. On her very first day at MGM Studio, Gardner captured the attention of none other than Mickey Rooney. He wasn't just an ordinary actor. Being just 21, he had held the title of MGM's biggest star for 3 consecutive years. When he asked her out, she hesitated. She was still young, new to the city, and quite noticeably taller than him. But Rooney, with his fame and sense of self-importance, didn't give up on Gardner that easily. Here was Gardner, a teenage girl from North Carolina, with all the attention from one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Eventually, she agreed to go on a date with Rooney. Not long after, he began pressing her for marriage. She asked him to wait until she turned 19. Her reluctance, however, wouldn't be the only obstacle they'd face on their path to matrimony. The twist came when MGM Studios told Rooney that they are not too keen on the idea of their young, highly popular star getting married, considering his large base of female fans. But Rooney persisted. MGM finally conceded, but they made sure to keep the wedding away from the prying eyes of the media. They insisted that the couple get married far from Los Angeles in a quaint town in Santa Barbara. Young Gardner was now caught between her bosses at the studio and her new husband, and things weren't going to be easy. Rooney's boyish charm and Gardner's stunning beauty made them a golden couple in the eyes of Hollywood. However, their glamorous facade concealed a darker reality. They were both heavy drinkers and revelers, with Rooney often becoming mean when he drank. Gardner was no saint either, often making fun of her drunken husband's height when he got angry. But their problems extended beyond these episodes. Being married to one of MGM's biggest stars, one might assume that the studio would be keen to keep Gardner occupied. On the contrary, she had to continuously fight for roles. She appeared in over 15 films in minor roles before MGM even credited her in one. Trapped in a restrictive contract and a troubled marriage, something had to change. In 1943, Ava Gardner made a difficult choice. She decided to divorce Mickey Rooney. The grounds stated in the official documents were grievous mental suffering and extreme mental cruelty. Despite Rooney being a top star, she didn't seek a hefty settlement and agreed to a sum of $25,000, even covering her own court fees. It was evident she wanted out of the marriage quickly and discreetly. This strategy seemed to work in her favor. Shortly after the divorce, MGM renewed her contract and gave her a pay raise. Perhaps they were grateful for her not tarnishing their star's reputation. Despite escaping an unhappy marriage, fate had a bitter twist in store for Gardner. Her relationship with Rooney had been like a tumultuous teenage affair, but Gardner longed for something more substantial. When she met bandleader Artie Shaw, he seemed perfect. Tall, dark, and intellectual, he was everything Rooney wasn't. But there was a hitch: he was already married. However, this turned out to be more of a problem for his wife than for Shaw and Gardner. He left his wife for Gardner, but she soon discovered that Shaw had some unsettling similarities with Rooney. Gardner later revealed that Shaw was emotionally abusive, taking a severe toll on her already fragile confidence. Shaw and Gardner got married in 1945. Despite being married, she constantly felt inadequate next to her commanding husband. By her own confession, she had only read 2 books at that point, the Bible and Gone with the Wind. At social events with Shaw's intellectual circle, she often felt out of place. But Gardner wasn't one to sit back. She had always enjoyed a drink during her time with Rooney, even though she was underage, but with Shaw, her drinking escalated. She became a heavy drinker, suffering from the accompanying hangovers and depressive episodes. Ironically, Shaw was interested in psychoanalysis and paid for Gardner's therapy during their marriage. In a way, he was attempting to mend the damage he was inflicting, albeit financially. But their problems were far greater than what a therapist could resolve. Despite Shaw's cruel treatment, Gardner was deeply in love with him. As their first anniversary neared, she even entertained the idea of having a baby to salvage their marriage. Unfortunately, heartache lurked just around the corner. The traditional gift for a first anniversary is paper, and Shaw adhered to this tradition in a devastating way. Just a year and a week after their wedding, he served Gardner with divorce papers. Facing the fear of the cancer that claimed her mother, Gardner had an elective hysterectomy. She later suffered a series of strokes in 1986, leaving her partially paralyzed. The years following her health decline were marked with loneliness and contemplation of suicide. Post her stroke, Gardner hired Peter Evans to ghostwrite her autobiography. However, their partnership was short-lived due to her discovery of a lawsuit filed by defamation. Evans later published his notes and recordings post Gardner's demise, revealing shocking insights into her life. Gardner's final years were marked by severe illnesses, solitude, and companionship of only her housekeeper, Carmen Vargas, and her Welsh corgi, Morgan. Her tragic end came following a fall in her London apartment, with her heartbreaking last words being, "I'm so tired." Gardner's funeral was a small, private ceremony in North Carolina, conspicuously devoid of all her ex-husbands. Her tumultuous journey to stardom and search for love culminated in a somber and solitary end.